Hi, this is an extra video on factorization. I have been asked some specific questions to go through. I will go through with the ones I've been asked, and then we'll move on to some application of factorization. First example, we have x squared minus 11x plus 24 equals 0. I will come back to the equal 0 in a minute. So at the moment I'm just going to look at this and factorize. So the coefficient of x squared is, there is no number here, so here the coefficient is 1, the number in front of x squared is 1. So what I'm going to do is, what I'm going to ask myself is, what two numbers timed together will give 24, and the same two numbers add together will give you 11. So let's start with 24. What two numbers timed together will give you 24? So 24 is here. So what are the pairs of numbers? 1 and 24, because 1 times 24 is 24. 2 and 12, 2 times 12 is 24. 3 times 8 is 24. 4 times 6 is 24. And that's it. There are no other pairs. Okay? Which one of those pairs can make 11? And the only one is 8 and 3. Has to be minus 11. So in order for them, when we add those two numbers, to make minus 11, they both need to be minus. And then also, if we time them together, minus times minus will become positive 24. So if we times them together, we'll get positive 24. If we add them together, we'll give you negative 11. So they are the one to use on our factorization. So in our bracket will be x minus 3, x minus 8. Okay, so that's me factorize that expression. Now in this case, when we go equal 0, now the equal 0 means this term times, when there's nothing between the brackets, times this term is equal 0. So that means when does a multiplication be equal 0? What is the only option for that to be 0? For one of those terms to be 0, because anything times 0 is equal 0. So it's either this one is equal 0 or this needs to be equal 0. So if this one is the 0, 1, that means the x minus 3 equals 0. So what is the value of x for x minus 3 to be equal 0? Add the 3 to both sides. X is equal 3. Or if that 1 was equal 0, x minus 8 is equal 0. What is the value of x for that to be equal 0? X has to be equal 8. Add 8 to both sides, so x equal 8. So either x is equal 3 and x is equal 8. But this part here is the solving the equation. This video is about factorization. So the factorize bit is this one. So what you need to do, times together, what two numbers times together will give you the number, what two numbers, the same two numbers added together will give you this. Now the second example is 4x squared minus 25. When there are only two terms and there is a minus in between, it is very likely to be a difference of two squares. Now look at those two numbers. This is a perfect square. So 25 is 5 times 5, or 5 squared. 4 is 2 times 2, which is 2 squared. And the x squared is x times x, which is x squared. Okay? So what squared is 4x squared? It's going to be 2x, because 2 squared is 4, x squared is x squared. So that's 2x. And what squared is 25? 5. Once we worked out what square will give you that, what square will give you this, we make one positive and one negative. Next we have the trinomial. A trinomial with the coefficient of x squared different than 1. That was 1. Here is more. That was 1. Here is more than 1. Here is 2. Okay. So what do we need to do? So here there is more work involved. what we need to do here is time A and C, time the first number with the last number. So 2 times minus 10 is minus 20, right? Now, what are the factors of 20? What pairs of number makes 20? 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. We need to make minus 20, so we already know that 1 is positive, 1 is negative, because when we time for a product to be negative, 1 has to be positive, 1 has to be negative. Now, also, which pair can make the coefficient of x here? The coefficient of x here is minus 1. When there is no number we know is a 1. So which one can make minus 1? Obviously no this, no that. It has to be 4 and 5. And we know that one of them is positive, one of them is negative. How do we know which one is which? If we add them together, it has to make minus 1. So has to be minus 5 and positive 4. Otherwise we'll make positive 1. So now I'm going to use 4 and 5 to replace minus 1x. So I'm going to rewrite this, change this with 4x minus 5x minus 10. Now I'm going to look at the first two terms, and I'm going to look for common factors. They're both in the two time tables and they both have an x. So 2x is a common factor. 2x times what will give you 2x squared? X. 2x times what will give you 4x? Positive 2. Second two terms. What timetable are they both in? 5. Is minus 5x, so I'm going to take minus 5 as a common factor. Minus 5 times what will give you minus 5x? X. Minus 5 times what will give you minus 10? Be careful, because minus times a positive will give you negative 10. So positive 2, because 5 times 2 is 10. Okay? Things inside the bracket have to be the same. Fine, they are the same, so we are okay, we're happy with it. So this one is one bracket in your answer, and the two single ones make the second bracket. And this is the final answer. Next, 5x squared minus 500. Right, when we said when there are two terms and there's a minus in between, it's likely to be the difference of squares. However, if we square root 500, we get a number with a point, so it's not a perfect square. If we square root 5, same story, it's not a perfect square. So they are not actual squares, so there's no difference of squares yet, but we can easily spot that they are both in the 5 time table. Okay, so we take 5 as a common factor to start with. 5 is a common factor. So 5 times what will give you 5x squared? X squared. 5 times what will give you negative 500? Negative 100. So in the exam, talking about exam, this one will be worth 1 mark. Now the second mark will come as, this one would actually say factorize fully, because it's the 2 steps question. So one step is getting the common factor. The second step will be spotting that this is now the difference of squares, because x squared is the square of x, and 100 is the square of 10. 10 squared makes 100, x squared makes x squared. So the 5 stays where it is. We say that x squared will make x squared, 10 squared will make 100, and the same way we've done up there, 1 positive, 1 negative, and that is the final answer. Now final example is this fraction. We've got x squared minus 5x over x squared minus 2x minus 15. I wanted to put this one here because this one is another application of factorization. That one was an application. The question here will be solve it. And here on this question will be simplify. But here we're going to use factorization in order to simplify. So we need to factorize the top of the fraction and the bottom of the fractions, and then we'll need to see if there is something that we can say. We need to factorize the numerator and we need to factorize the denominator. So in the numerator we can spot that both of them has got an x, so x is a common factor. X times what will give you x squared, x. X times what will give you minus 5x, minus 5. Now, so that's the numerator. For the denominator, we need to factorize this expression. So same as the first examples we've done, the coefficient of x squared is 1. So we need to find the two numbers that time together will give you minus 15, and the same two numbers added together will give you minus 2. So let's have a look at what are the factors of 15. What two numbers time together will give you 15. First thing to notice is that the 15 is negative, so those two numbers, when we get the pairs, we know the one is positive, one is negative, because in order for a product to be negative, one has to be positive, one has to be negative. So the pairs of numbers that time together will give you 15 is 1 and 15, and 3 and 5. Now, which one of those two pairs will make minus 2? This one will never make 2, that one has a possibility. Now, in order to make a minus 2 when we add them, the negative has to be on the 5. Otherwise, if the negative would have been on the 3, minus 3 plus 5 will be positive 2, but we're looking for negative 2, so this one is not correct. So it's 3 and negative 5. So here we have x positive 3, x negative 5. Now we're lucky enough that we have x minus 5 as a numerator and x minus 5 as a denominator. They are times, they do times by something. This x minus 5 will be times by x minus 5 will be times by all of that. So because of that, they cancel each other. So final answer here is x over x plus 3. Common mistake, try to simplify them too. They do not cancel each other. And the reason is because x is adding 3 to it. It's not times by anything. So we cannot simplify them, okay? If you want any more clarification, if you want any more examples you want me to do, just put the specific question down and comment below. I will try to explain to you, or I will make any more videos. Okay, thank you.